So firstly, I just want to welcome the warmest of welcomes to all of you. Inspirational Group as an organisation very proudly focuses on leadership development and all of its facets. It's very much around human performance, helping our people to be the very best that they can be and to be the most empowered leaders that they can be. Many of you will know us. For those that we are new, we have a base here in the UK. I am the UK MD, I'm Fliss Wingrove. We've also got a base over in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, where our Middle East operation is headquartered, a base in Pune in India, where our operations are focused there, and also we have a base over in mainland Europe. We look after clients. We're 25 years old. It's our birthday this year, which is hugely exciting. And we've looked after some incredible clients, some of whom are still with us 20 plus years later, and that's something we're incredibly proud of. We provide support across change, across leadership and development, across coaching and communications, but anything really that's to do with people, human performance and supporting them. I am Fliss Wingrove, as I mentioned, as well as being the UK MD, I lead the coaching and communications division globally, and I'm a psycholinguist, so a behavioural psychologist with a specialism in language, looking at how we frame the world, looking at our inner voice, but also how we can be very deliberate in our communications. And I can pass you to my wonderful colleague, Lesley.
Hey, hi everybody. It's lovely to be here. So I'm Lesley Mourant and I'm the principal coach here at Inspirational Group. I help to lead and run the coaching division, which is made up of over 140 coaches across the globe, which we're very, very proud of. We also provide coach training to individuals who want to really deepen their knowledge of coaching and start to look into accreditation with the ICF. So again, it's a great pathway that we really do help individuals to work with. In terms of my own background, I've been coaching now for the best part of 10 years, but prior to that, I was in human resources and organizational development. And for me, it really is about ensuring that we create a better future and better leadership for a better tomorrow. So thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to share what we've got in store for today.
We're going to be focusing on 3 core outcomes. We've got 60 minutes with you, or just slightly less than that now. And we're very keen that you have some really practical takeaways, that as you leave our time together, that you feel further resourced, inspired, that there is a spark or at least just a single light bulb moment. We'll take that as a real win. But we are going to be looking very much focusing around coaching, sustainable coaching. How do we make change truly sustainable? We're going to be looking at understanding awareness alone is not enough. What do we need to create truly sustainable change? Leslie's going to be taking us through a coach approach to build that, and we're going to be sharing a whole batch of practical applications and insights. So just relax. I mean, this is a really interactive session. If you have questions, please put those into the chat. We'd love to interact and to engage with you as we go through.
Hey, wonderful. So let's get started then, and a huge welcome. So I want to start with a very simple reality, okay? And that is that most people don't fail at change because they're unmotivated. They fail because they're human. Research shows that 70% of organizational change efforts fail. Okay, and only about 20% of personal resolutions last. So really keep that in mind when you think about those New Year's resolutions as we move forward. And why is that? Well, it's because 40 to 50% of our daily actions are habits, okay? They're automatic, they're ingrained, and they're really hard to overwrite. But here's the exciting part, okay? When people have support and accountability, success skyrockets. Studies show that your chances of sustaining change can jump up to 95% when you have somebody walking alongside you. So here's another truth. Most people need at least 5 attempts before a new behavior truly sticks, okay? So if you have ever slipped back yourself, or you've watched your team slip back, that's not failure, Okay, it's the process. And today we are talking about that process. We want to really understand it, get beneath the surface so that we can really help to transform those good intentions into sustainable, long-lasting change. Okay, so sustainable change isn't a knowledge problem. We all have plenty of knowledge. There are so many books out there that we can read if we haven't read them already. It's a behavior and reinforcement problem. So I want to take us to my roots, and that is looking at this firstly through the lens of a coach approach. And today I really want to focus on the principles of being a coach or taking a coach approach in our leadership style. So the first thing that I want us to zone in on is this trusting the client, okay? And what I mean by this, and certainly in the context of change, is that I trust that the person in front of me has the information within them and around them to come up with a solution that is right for them or the team. Okay, even if my solutions are in the back of my mind, I'm going to trust that they can come up with something just as good, if not even better. The second principle that I'm going to take you to is accept, blend and create. And I absolutely love this because this is about meeting people where they are. And what I mean by this, okay, if you can think of yourselves, and certainly if you're somebody who's making decisions, you're leading the charge in change, more often than not, you are already partway through that journey, way through that journey before it reaches your team, okay? And we can sometimes be disappointed when we start to share our ideas. We share the unveiling of this change, and we realize that our teams aren't quite there. They're not with us. They're not as enthused. And this is about being able to let go of where we are and say, do you know what? I can stand with you here. I understand where you currently are, and we're going to create something from this place so that we can move forward. I'm going to take you to presence now. So presence is all about being there, okay? Your people, your teams, even yourself are not afterthoughts. You cannot be present if you are having these conversations at the side of a desk, checking your emails, thinking about what you're going to have for dinner, okay? You need to give your full attention to people, and we need to make the time in order to do that. If we move down this diagram, come to the bottom, I'm going to look at partnership now. So in coaching, if we're looking at this from a traditional coach and client perspective, we come together in a partnership, okay? There are no hierarchies. There is no power imbalance. This is all about us creating a safe space where each of us can come to the table equally. It means that actually we need that person, again, we trust that person to come to the table too. And then finally, possibility. And this is what coaching is wrapped up in, about creating possibility, having the environment where we can create possibility even when things seem really, really tough. Okay, so those are our principles of coaching, and I hope that I've given you some context around it in the context of change. I now want to give you a tool. So you can see up on screen here that we have they look like planets, don't they? It looks like Saturn with the rings around it. So this tool we absolutely love. This is a tool called pies. Yes, so if you can think of a pie now, that is what I'm asking you to think about. But I don't want you to think about pies as in eating a lovely pie and enjoying it. What I want you to think about are the resources that you have available to you. Because quite often when we're going through something that's tricky, when we're changing something and we get overwhelmed, we forget all of the great things that we already have around us that's going to support us in making change. So again, pies. We're going to look at physical resources. So what do I have available to me? Whether it's money, whether it's staff, whether it's equipment, what do I need? What is available? intellectual resources. So the skills, the knowledge, where is that coming from? What do I have? Do I need to go and do a course? Do I need to bring an expert in that's going to give us some more knowledge that we need to make this change happen? Emotional resources. So often in change, we forget about the emotional journey that people are going on. How do I feel in this moment? How do I feel about this change? What emotional resources do I have that is going to take me forward in this journey? Am I excited? Yeah. Do I feel a bit anxious? But am I able to jump over that in order to get to the end result? And then finally, our social resources. Who are our cheerleaders? Who are the budget holders that we need to convince to give us the budget to get that project done? Yeah. Who might be a blocker? Who might be somebody who is going to shout about what we're doing and going to make a big impact across the business? And we really need to think about this. What I would like to do is to pause for a moment, and I've got a little exercise for everybody to do individually. I'm not going to ask you to share it online. However, I do invite you to write it into the chat if you feel that you would like to, just to bring us all together. So this is called a resources reset. And firstly, I'd like to take you back to our physical resources. And I want to ask you, what small action can I take to optimize my energy and presence for today's work? Okay, so just ask yourself, what small action can I take to optimize my energy and presence for today's work? It could be a moment to reset. It could be listening to this masterclass. Maybe it's going for a 2-minute walk before a big meeting, or just rearranging your workspace so that you feel more collected. Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much for putting that into the chat. The next place I'm going to take you to then is our intellectual resources. And the question that I want you to ask yourself now is, what capability, idea, or piece of expertise can I bring into my next decision or conversation? Okay, so what capability, idea, or piece of expertise can I bring into my next decision or conversation? And you might draw this from a past experience. It could be some insight from data that you currently hold. But what is it that you can bring to that decision? Andreas, I love that. Ask my body intelligence. Okay, we're going to move to our emotional resources now then. And the question that I want you to ask yourself is, what emotional state will serve me best in my current priorities, and what helps me get there? Okay. So what emotional state will serve me best in my current priorities, and what helps me get there? You just think about what you've got going on. Maybe you need some calm. Maybe you need some courage just to get you through a conversation you're not looking forward to. Perhaps it's curiosity and open-mindedness. Maybe you come here today with some curiosity about what to expect. Hey, Massa, calm, brilliant. Finally, we're going to move to our social resources, okay? So our social resources, the question that I want you to ask yourself is, who can I connect with or leverage today to move a goal forward? Okay, so who can I connect with or leverage today to move a goal forward? So this could be a stakeholder, a mentor, perhaps it's a peer with expertise. Maybe it's somebody that could challenge your thinking. Who can you connect with? It's going to help you move forward. Love that, Danny. Yes, you can connect with me. Brilliant, Andres, your wife. So, the last question I'm going to leave you with then, with this little exercise, is which single action from everything that you have written down so far would make the biggest impact if you committed to it today? Okay, so everything that you've just written down, it's great writing it down when we're in the moment, but taking it away and actually doing it is a different thing. So just want you to think about the one thing that would make an impact if you did go away and do it after this session. And once you've taken that little commitment, I'm going to pass you over to Fliss, who is going to bring this to life even further for us.
Thanks so much, Lesley. Thank you. I was just going to say, can we flick on to the next slide? So one of the things that stands often in our way when we are considering change is psychological safety. And I think lots of us, it's a very fashionable term. Lots of us have heard people discuss psychological safety, but actually really starting to feel deeply into how that might represent for us, for our teams, so us as leaders, us as coaches, for our wider teams, and actually for the world at large. A lot of brilliant work has been done around psychological safety by Amy Edmondson, Dr. Amy Edmondson, who is a professor over at Harvard Business School, and we will, no problem, we're losing, there we go. She's over at Harvard Business School, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about her and some of her work in a moment. But the core definition here around psychological safety is the belief that we can speak up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes without fear of repercussions, making it essential for team effectiveness and innovation. Why that matters when we're talking about sustainable change is that quite often we can self-censor. So as well as being a psycholinguist, my background is in neuroscience, and our brain is a wonderful, wonderful thing, but its sole function is to keep us safe. We also have to recognize that we are the product of very risk-averse ancestors. They were able to pass their DNA on to us because they listened to the part of their mind, the story in their mind that something was dangerous, that they shouldn't go near the edge of that high cliff, that the saber-toothed tiger actually might not be all that friendly. This meant that we, as humans in today's day and age, will look for a negative, will look for threat before we would look for a positive. Negativity bias is very real and it's scientifically grounded. What that means when it comes to change is even positive change can feel frightening. And we can use rational thought to mitigate, to manage those emotions. But the problem is, if we don't have full psychological safety, quite often we can be triggered into responses that aren't actually hugely logical. The logical part of our brain sits in our neocortex, rational thought, higher function, all of that wonderful humanity, kindness and empathy sits all the way up here. If we get triggered into our amygdala, we don't have access to that. So one of the things I would love you to bring awareness to today is what psychological safety might look and feel like for you. We tend to, at Inspirational Group, we tend to use Clark's model. So there are 4 sections to psychological safety. There is inclusion safety. Do I feel that I matter? Do I feel that I am included, noticed? Am I part of something? The second step is learner safety. Is it okay for me not to know everything? Is it okay for me to make a small mistake? Is it okay for me to wonder and bring curiosity? The third step is contributor safety. Is it okay for me to put my hand up and say, what about? Have you thought? Could we do? And then the fourth step, final step, is challenger safety. Is it okay for me to say, I disagree? I think that's wrong. I think we need to go back to the drawing board. We need to consider this again. I'm not convinced this is the right path. Now, Clark would have you think that those 4 steps are a stairway, and I'm not a huge fan of that. I believe that actually we can step into those at very different times. We may feel that we belong, but we might feel embarrassed in a new team to not know. We might feel that we can contribute, but not that we can challenge. We might feel that we can challenge our leaders, but we can't challenge our team members. And remember, our focus here today is around sustainable change, change that sticks, change that affects all that we need and continues to affect. So I would absolutely invite you to consider where you might be on those 4 steps based on your current role. If you are working across multiple clients, consider that, or multiple roles, consider one particular one. Do I feel that I belong? Do I feel that I matter? Do I feel that I can learn, that it's okay to not know? Do I feel that I can contribute? And do I feel that I can challenge? And actually, if you ever start to wonder whether that psychological safety is shifting, if you ever start to feel not okay, use that as a shorthand. Go back in and work out which of those 4 areas is missing or which of those 4 areas is lacking, and consider what would need to happen using some of the tools that Lesley shared when she was talking about pies. What would need to happen for me to reinforce my psychological safety? Because when we have psychological safety, we are able to bring curiosity, to explore, to wonder, to not know, to try, to challenge, to show up. And all of those are absolutely integral parts of creating and sustaining change. Can we flick on to the next slide, please, Lesley? Thank you. So if anyone hasn't come across Dr. Amy Edmondson, there's a picture of her there. She's done a fantastic TED Talk. She's got an enormous amount of materials out there. There are scholarly articles and talking head videos. She's really, really switched on and also really quite magnetic. So it's great to watch, and I would certainly invite you to explore some of her work. Most of her work is distilled down into 3 core learnings about what great psychological safety looks and feels like. And I've put them here. She says that in an organization that creates psychological safety, mistakes are framed as learning opportunities. Her name is Dr. Amy Edmondson. We can send a link. We're going to send a few insights and goodies out to you. Yes, I'm going to send that out to you afterwards. We'll send a link to her TED Talk and some of the other resources so that you can continue your own exploration. But she's a Novartis professor over at Harvard Business School. So Amy Edmondson, her research distills down mistakes being learning opportunities within an organization, within a team, within a division, however you may divide your workplace. If mistakes are framed as learning opportunities, you create an environment through which each team member feels able to continue to be included, to learn, to contribute, and to challenge. And that's really important. And I've delivered this training quite recently, a psychological safety dedicated half-day training for a client in London. And actually, they work in a highly, highly regulated environment. Mistakes can be catastrophic, not just to share price, but actually they can cause very significant issues. So I had the challenge from them that mistakes can never be a good thing. But what I would say, and I would invite you, is to consider what a mistake actually is. Mistakes are steps on the route to finding the right way. If we're treading new ground, how can we always guarantee that something is going to work or land well or succeed if we've never trodden that path before? If we're so frightened that it won't work, go back to what I said about the negativity bias in our brain. If we're so frightened that it won't work, what will happen is we'll stop ourselves, we'll censor ourselves, and we will take the safe route. Going back to today's focus on sustainable change, change is new. Change is moving from something that is known to something that is not. In itself, that can be scary, but also it's a brand new path. If we are frightened of making mistakes, if we don't have learner safety, then we will never tread that new path. We won't be able to push towards positive change, and we certainly won't be able to sustain it. Now, Amy Edmondson's second point is that conflict is not bad. Lots of leadership thinking now suggests that we want to create harmony, that we want to create a safe space for our team by ensuring that there is equity, harmony, calm, and all of that is wonderful. But actually, conflict can be a brilliant thing when it's productive, when it's respectful, and within the environment of change, we often need to create conflict. There's a concept popularized by Reed Hastings over at Netflix called farming for dissent. And farming for dissent is when we actively encourage challenge. And we create one of the things that they do at Netflix, they also do this at Google and quite a few of the other large organizations, some that I've worked with. They will give one person in a meeting the role of dissenter. They might give them a special hat, sometimes it's a mug, whatever it might be, but for the purpose of that meeting, their role is to dissent. Now, dissent means to disagree, to challenge, to check in, to ask awkward questions, to keep challenging. What happens when we're not given permission to do that is that we may ask one question, we may even ask two, but we do get to a point where we do self-censor. We feel that I can't keep asking questions. I'm going to look like I'm not supportive, the voice in our head may say. I don't want to keep challenging. I don't want people to think I'm awkward or I'm not supportive. And we stop. The problem arises because then what happens is we end up moving forwards without properly testing and measuring a concept or an idea. There's no rigor in it. So perhaps, again, another learning that you may wish to take away from today is if I'm looking to create sustainable change, I need each of the steps and the decisions that we make to be challenged. I'm going to ask one person, and that person will absolutely change, one person at random to sit in the role of dissenter at each important meeting when we're looking at strategy, when we're looking at the tactical deployment of our new way of working. I'm going to ask them to be really robust in their check and challenge. And this is hugely important, this dissent. Don't forget, if we think about Netflix, the Blockbuster board decided not to buy Netflix for $50 million because, and a direct quote, streaming will never catch on. And nobody in that room felt able to challenge that decision. Now we know where Netflix is, and we know where Blockbuster is. So it goes to show that actually sometimes robust challenge can save a business. The final point from Dr. Amy Edmondson is that leaders model candour and encourage open conversations. So it's up to us as leaders in our organisations, in our teams, in our wider life, to make sure that we are able to have those honest, robust conversations. Candour is not just truthfulness, it's showing up with integrity, that we're able to model that for our teams, and that we can encourage that openness, because that links into the challenger safety, but it also links in to contributor safety. So I've thrown a lot at you there, and there are going to be resources. Thank you to Joanne for sharing a link to some of the work, but we've got a wonderful resource pack that we've planned that we're going to be sending out to you post this call, where you can go into and explore some of the wider work and some of the principles. So for example, Clark's 4-step model. I just wanted to really introduce you to this concept because it feels so important within the scope of sustainability, sustainable change, but also from a mindset perspective for you if you yourself are going through that process. Thanks, Lesley.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Fliss. So you're going to think I'm going mad now because I'm about to show you a very short video. So that is a video of my eldest daughter learning how to walk. And it was intentional that I put the video into today's session, because what I want you to do now is to think about how we learn, and actually how we allow others to learn in the workplace, right? Because you see, when we think back to how we, if we've got children, how we allow them to grow, you would never see a couple of adults watching a child stumbling and picking themselves up off the floor and having this discussion about, oh, they were useless. They're not going to learn how to walk. They might as well quit now. I'm going to go and get a chair. They are going to sit forever. They're not going to start walking. The other thing that I want you to think about is actually how children continue to persist. And why do they persist? They persist because we're there, we're encouraging, we're saying, come on, you can do it. You've got this. Look, you're almost there. Clapping. And this really, really lends itself to one of the fundamental beliefs that we take when we take a coach approach. And that is the belief that everybody is whole, capable, wise, and good. Now, I know that this is a hugely broad statement, okay? And it can be really challenging for us to believe this in some people, especially in the workplace, in those times of conflict and when we're working with somebody who we don't quite gel with. But what I want you to do for just a moment now is think of a time when somebody truly believed that you were whole, capable, wise, and good. Okay, it could be a school teacher, possibly a parent. Maybe it's your best friend, always there, cheering you on. You tell them something and they're like, you are amazing. Just get out there and do it. How does that make you feel? And you can pop that into the chat, actually. How does it make you feel when somebody, when you see that somebody truly believes in you? What's possible in these moments when somebody believes in you? Yeah, you become braver. Your nervous system, we're not going to go into it today, but your nervous system relaxes. You get bolder. You can show up more authentically. You get more creative. The amazing thing is, and this is one of the things that I really wanted to highlight today, is that you can extend these feelings to others. Yeah. How often do we go into the workplace and we actually share with our teams or show our teams that we do believe in them, that we do think, yeah, you've got this, okay? You can go forward and you'll be able to make this right. I'm guessing that it's probably not as often as we think or as often as we should. Now, I want to share with you another very quick resource, and I can't claim that this is my resource, but it's something that I do use regularly, and I just think it's wonderful in a work context, especially when you're working with teams. And this is all about getting intentional before we go into these conversations, before we have these meetings where we know that there could be an element of challenge, dispute. And this is an exercise that actually comes from the book Search Inside Yourself. It's by a gentleman called Chade-Meng Tan. He is known as the Google guy, but internally inside Google, he was actually known as the happiness guy. And he has this exercise that he used to invite his colleagues to all participate in before they went into their meetings. And it's called the 3 assumptions. So I'm just going to share this with you now. Assumption 1. Assume that everybody in this room is here to serve the greater good until proven otherwise. Assumption 2. Given the above assumption, we therefore assume that none of us has any hidden agenda until proven otherwise. And assumption 3, given the above assumption, we therefore assume that we are all reasonable, even when we disagree, until proven otherwise. Again, just thinking about some of these situations we find ourselves in. How many times do we walk into a conversation at work where we've already made a huge assumption about how that meeting is going to end? What kind of embodiment is the person in front of us going to take before we've even spoken? And what would happen actually if we prepared ourselves to be curious, to be open, and to assume good? Because let's face it, I don't think any of us really wake up first thing in the morning and think, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to go into that meeting and I am going to cause chaos. I am going to really, really upset my colleagues. I also just want to quickly pick up on some of the comments in the chat in terms of that self-belief. So our brains are incredible. Okay, we as human beings, I just get so excited knowing about all of our capabilities. We're also quite primitive. And this goes back to some of the stuff that Fliss was talking about before. And our brain will continually, it will believe what we continue to tell it. Okay, so again, if you're looking at that self, and I know that Fliss is going to go into more detail about this in a moment, but if we continually bring in that self-doubt, that's what our brain's going to believe. And so what I would say to you is that if you don't believe in yourself today, remember the people that do and start getting their voices inside your head, because it makes a huge difference. Now, I know that I have shared all of these lovely things and that it's great. We're going to have all of these assumptions going into the workplace, but I realize that there is resistance. And so again, I'm going to pass on to Fliss now, who's really going to just build on this to show you how it can be really practical and why it's so important when we're thinking about sustained change.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lesley. So I love this slide because it's the most perfect example of our brain and the power of our brain in action. So this is an example of us curating the truth. I often use the phrase that your truth is not the truth. And on the face of it, it's a very innocent phrase, but actually it's probably one of the most profound learnings, certainly that I took on. Our understanding of the world around us is shaped by our lived experience, by where we were educated, for how long and in what. It's shaped by our cultural paradigm, by our family structure, by so many hundreds and thousands of lived experiences. But it's also shaped by the rules that we give our brain. And so few of us are aware that we have the ability to positively impact what we see and how we experience the world around us. So this green car is here to represent a part of our brain called the RAS, your reticular activating system. And it sits above our brainstem, kind of right in the center of our brain. And its sole function is to filter everything going on around us. So there is a wild discrepancy, but most neuroscientists agree that we are subject to several 100,000 stimuli every second. Several 100,000. Our brain can only actively process fewer than 10. Just imagine several 100,000 down to fewer than 10. Some people as few as 5. The way in which we reduce that volume of information, the volume of what is going on around us, is that our reticular activating system, our RAS in our brain, follows the rules that we give it unconsciously and subconsciously to generalize, delete, and distort all of it. And a perfect example of this was given, there was a study done back in, gosh, I think it was sort of 2013, 2014, where people were asked to count the number of passes of a basketball between people wearing a white bib. So there was a film of two small groups of players on a pitch, a basketball court, sorry, I'm so not sporty, am I? On a basketball court, passing the ball between them, and the subjects were asked to count how many times the ball passed. And they were absolutely, almost without exception, they were correct. What they didn't see was a 6'2" man wearing a gorilla suit walk at the back of the court, walk back to the middle, wave, and then continue walking. All of the participants were absolutely adamant that that hadn't happened. And yet it had. They had missed such a dramatic, unexpected highlight of that moment because it wasn't important to them. So why a green car? I launched my very first business almost 20 years ago. The brand colour was lime green, almost as vibrant as this lime green. And at the time, I decided one of my marketing tactics would be I was due to buy a new car, and I was going to buy a car in that brand colour, and I was going to get it logoed up. And in my mind, nobody drives a green car. I hadn't seen a green car for 4 years prior. It was going to be wildly unusual. It was going to stand out for all the right reasons. And I was congratulating myself as I got into my car, not green. I was going off to buy that. I was going off to have a look and see what I could choose. I got into my car and I'd pulled out of the car park, and I was waiting at the T-junction, and a green car drove past me. And I chuckled to myself thinking, how strange. What are the odds? I haven't seen a green car for nearly 4 years, and I've just seen one now. And then it got odder. I drove 100 yards down the road, and as I was waiting to join the roundabout, a green car went round. I drove to the supermarket. On my way home, I parked 2-3 cars away was a green car. And genuinely, when I got home, my next door but one neighbour had a green car parked on their drive. 4 green cars in a matter of 30 minutes, having not seen one for 4 years. One of the things that I would love you to bring awareness to is that those green cars were always there, but I didn't see them because they weren't important to me. We need to recognize how we filter truth. We need to bring openness to our thinking, openness to what is going on around us. And one of the ways that we can do that is to constantly check in with ourselves about what we are telling our brain is important, really bringing consciousness and deliberateness to the processing that we are undertaking. Can we jump onto the next slide, Lesley? Thank you. This is a wordy slide, and I'm going to send this to you as part of the notes. These are some questions that I've developed using neurolinguistic programming, psycholinguistics, and some behavioral psychology. And they're intended to start to unpick our fixed thinking. So linking into all of the wonderful wisdom that Lesley shared earlier, when we have cognitive entrenchment is when we are fixed on an idea that we are convinced is right. What we then do is we reinforce the correctness of that idea. Our reticular activating system goes out and finds all of the evidence that we are correct, that this is a great idea, that this will work. We reinforce it. We build a whole tower around it to protect it. And that's really dangerous, particularly if we are going through a process of change. Often, that first idea, it makes it harder for other people to challenge. It makes it harder for us to bring agility and dynamism to that thinking. It can't be tested and measured. It can't be checked. It can't be changed. It becomes really fixed and rigid. So these questions are great because they do the equivalent of just starting to pull the thread. The first one is one of my favorites. It's a neurolinguistic programming question. Ask yourself about an idea, a route forward, a step, a strategy. Was there ever a time that wasn't true? Now, there's a double negative in there that really confuses the brain's ordinary functionality, and it starts to create a new zone of thinking. Other questions, what would need to happen or what would need to stop happening, and then build in that positive outcome. So forgetting your fixed thinking, just considering what would need to happen and challenging yourself. Lots of other questions in there as well. Think about, for example, what evidence you might have. Think about how somebody else, if you've got a mentor, how might they act? How does it change the way that you think? Or what might be the worst outcome? What might be the best? So thinking about the worst outcome, that goes back to that farming for dissent concept that I introduced. So these are just some questions designed to help you to maintain agility, agile thinking, which is hugely important when we are looking at sustaining change. Because once the willpower and the excitement, so thinking about New Year's resolutions, moving it away from organizational change, thinking about a personal change. New Year's Day, you're full of enthusiasm and excitement and can-do attitude. But unless we start to change the processing that's going on in our brain, unless we start to encourage agile thinking, as Lesley showed us at the beginning, we are very significantly less likely to continue that change until the next new year. Back over to you, Lesley.
Okay, wonderful. We had some feedback to talk about.
This was just looking at how we can elicit some. So shall I jump in and just start and then get some of your wisdom around our own tool?
Wonderful.
Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, brilliant.
So one of the ways that you can check your own thinking, one of the ways that you can make sure that you're not in this cognitive entrenchment, in this fixed thinking, is to encourage what we would term 360-degree feedback. So there are a lot of tools out there, and we have our own quite brilliant one that's based on the Schroeder model of high performance. And Lesley can give us a little bit of detail about that in just a moment. But consider yourselves checking in, consider the power of asking your peers, your colleagues, asking those people that report in to you, and asking those to who you report for genuine, honest critique and feedback. It can be quite difficult. It can be quite difficult for people to be really candid, but go back to Amy Edmondson and modeling that candour. Often it can be really useful to use an external resource, because actually it can be created in a slightly more anonymous way. It may be that there are 5 people that are reporting to you, so it's not necessarily that someone's name is against the feedback that they're providing, but also it gives you the opportunity to receive really honest critique, not criticism, but critique, to help you to continue to sustain that change. Lesley, do you mind talking a little bit about My 360 Plus, which is obviously our own in-house 360-degree tool?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a My 360 Plus tool, which was developed a number of years ago off the back of the Harry Schroeder model. And what Harry Schroeder really was looking at is, what are the high performance behaviors needed for a VUCA world? So really a world that we live in that is full of high change. And the way that our model works and the way that our assessment works is that we set it out into 4 clusters. So we have the cluster 1, which is about, how does this person think about the solutions that they come up with? Are they looking for facts outside of the business? Are they looking to research? Are they just in their own minds that they just thought, I've got a great idea, this is it, and this is done? So we look at how people think about their ideas and how they really put those solutions together. We then look at how they are inspiring others. Okay, so yes, I am able to think up this great idea, but am I able to get other people to buy into it? Yeah. So how often do I do that, and how do I do that? The third cluster is all about getting the work done. So it's great to have ideas. It's great to get people excited. Are we actually getting the work done now? Okay. Are there results? And finally, and probably the most crucial when we're looking at that return on investment, is, what are the measurements to success? Am I measuring this success, and what metrics am I using to enable that? So the way that it works is that an individual will do their own assessment, and they will get a report that comes back with where they view themselves. but they also have the ability to send out nominations for people for feedback, and they get given exactly the same questionnaire. And those questions are designed to take out some of that subjective feedback. So the questions are really structured in how often does this person display this particular behavior? How often do they let their team speak? How often have you seen them supporting a colleague? And all of this data is put together so that you get this beautiful report at the end where they can see their self-assessment, but they can also see where their self-assessment is in comparison to where other people see them. And the great thing about that report is that we can drill down into 3 areas. We can drill down into bosses and people who are further up the hierarchy than ourselves. We can look at the data across peers. So actually, how do I interact with my peers? Is it different to the way that I interact with my boss? And then how do I interact with the people who are under my guard? So my line reports, the people that I am responsible for. And we can look at those trends and see where those differences are, which is wonderful. And we've worked with a number of businesses to really bring that to life, because again, once we've got that data, it's so important to explore that data so that we can decide where we are going to focus on making change. Okay, if we're going to get that data and then just leave it in the back of a drawer, it's no help to anybody. So we always offer a 90-minute debrief with any report that is shared, and it's a great little tool. We'll send you some information about it with our follow-up discussion. So I'm really conscious that we've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we have given you all the tools that we thought were necessary for this masterclass. So I'm going to very quickly take us through to our final piece. Now, I know that you will have been given loads of tools in the past around creating sustainable change. So really, these are the fundamental rules that we see as being crucial if you are going to create that sustained change. So the first thing is really focusing in on your mindset, okay? You need to firstly start believing in yourself, and you need to start believing in your team, okay? What you truly believe deep down is going to show up in your behaviors. There is no getting out of this, okay? It takes practice, it takes time. And the wonderful thing about it is that our brains continue to grow. We can continue to create neural pathways which really do lean into this belief. So please get practicing with yourself and with others. The second thing is that data. Start collecting data, okay? Because as myself and Fliss has shared throughout this session, okay, our minds believe what we repeatedly tell it. And quite often, it might not necessarily be true. Okay, so being able to collect data from ourselves, I particularly like journaling actually, in terms of really writing down the things that have gone great, the things that I have succeeded in, but using assessments, having those difficult conversations where you know that somebody can truly give their feedback and you can use it to move forward and create possibility. Starting small. Everybody gets so excited, okay? We think, yes, oh my gosh, I've got this idea. I need to run away with it. It's going to be grand by the end of the year. It's going to be a huge success. I want you to slow down, okay? Sustainable change happens slowly. It happens incrementally. So I just want you to think of one thing that you can do today that your future self or your team will thank you for, okay? So very, very small. And then finally, get comfortable with failure. Now, I know that you cannot have failure in all circumstances, but failure does have to form part of your success, okay? I work with so many execs who have the weight of the world on their shoulders, ready to rescue their team, stepping in at every opportunity so that mistakes aren't made. And what I want to share is, what are we denying our teams by not allowing them to fail in some way? I know certainly for me that some of my biggest growth moments have come from those painful realizations that I've made a mistake, something's gone wrong, and I haven't made it again, but I've grown. So this is all we wanted to share with you today. We have a couple of moments left, so I will open it up to the floor. If you do want to ask any questions, you might want to put the questions in the chat and we can answer them to you directly after this session. But thank you so much for getting involved and being willing participants with everything we've shared today. We've absolutely enjoyed being here with you, so thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing so we can bring everybody together again.
عملها في هلا كيف بدك اي ساعه انتم البوكسينج 4 هلا
Okay, I can hear somebody. So I've just seen in the chat that somebody's asked about the pricing models for the My 360 Plus. We will send you all of that information. We're very excited because we've actually got a bit of an offer for you today exclusively with this. So we'll send that all to you when we send our follow-up notes.
And there's going to be lots in there. So with the links to Dr. Amy Edmondson, I'm going to send you the cognitive entrenchment questions, and we'll also send you a little bit about My 360 Plus. But lots of reading for those that choose, but no homework if you don't want to. Oh, thank you all for your lovely comments. That's wonderful. It's really good to hear that it's landing so well. Fabulous. I don't think we have any questions, Lesley, and you've taken us perfectly to 12 midday. So yeah. I'll pass back to you. I can just say the hugest thank you to you all, but I pass back to you to wrap.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it's as if we've planned it to end right at this time. So yeah, just a massive thank you to you all. Like I said, we will send out these follow-ups to you all. Thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to seeing you again. We've got lots in store for the new year. So go and enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are, and we'll catch up soon.
And for those who celebrate Christmas, a very Merry Christmas as well. I'm conscious we won't be seeing you probably before the December break. Have a great one. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.